It's the call of the wild. And Ford answers with Bronco 2, a brand new kick in four-wheeling. The new, smaller Bronco 2 takes rough terrain and snow in stride with four-wheel drive. Inside, there's around-town comfort for four and split-fold seats for extra cargo. And Bronco 2's just the right size for easy maneuvering in tight places. Plus, V6 power no competitor can touch. See the all-new Ford Bronco 2. It's a brand new kick.
If the Bronco was smart, its marketing was brilliant. Ford touted the Bronco not merely as an off-roader or a utility vehicle, but also as a new kind of sports car with four-wheel drive. It wasn't just cool, it was practical. The Bronco's short, nimble chassis was ideal for both off-road rock crawling and around-town maneuvering. From the beginning, the Bronco's future looked bright. It went on to sell over 700,000 vehicles during its 7-year run.
Bronco. Bronco. Ford Bronco. First four-wheel drive sports car, blazing a new trail of excitement. The new Ford Bronco for 1966. A rough, tough, go-anywhere, climb-anything sports car. Name of Bronco. A new V8 Bronco at your Ford dealer.
But for every masterpiece, there's a horrid work of art lurking around the corner. Every brilliant idea comes with a blast of stupidity, and so it went for the Bronco. Unfortunately, that horse came to symbolize the Bronco in a very particular way: rollovers. Now Ford's back to win over a new generation of Bronco drivers in 2021. But consumers young and old deserve to know the real history of the Ford Broncos and the Explorer's deadly vehicle design defects and cover-ups, resulting in over 3,800 deaths and hundreds of millions of dollars in verdicts and settlements against them. The idea behind the Bronco is not to create a new family vehicle, but rather to downsize the traditional four-wheel drive truck. The Ford Bronco was based on pickup truck bones, and it was designed to be as rough and tumble as the original, as well as recognizing not just its off-road chops, but also its suitability as a vehicle for all purposes. Only problem was, it wasn't what Ford said it was, and Ford knew it. Their own engineers showed management the deadly dangers, but Ford management ignored them, and worse yet, hid them. Ford's engineers had calculated the Bronco 2's stability index as dangerous. They strongly recommended to Ford to widen the track of the SUV and lower the center of gravity. It took a while, but eventually the rest of the world became clued in about the Bronco's safety issues due to its tendency to tip over in emergency maneuvers, even at relatively low speeds. The problem was that the Bronco needed a wider track and an independent rear suspension, and they didn't add it until 2002. But by that time, over 3,826 people had been killed in Bronco and Explorer rollovers. It got so bad that insurance giant Geico refused to write policies for it. It wasn't long before lawsuits began to pile up. In 1992 alone, the New York Times claimed Ford faced a total of $742 million in multiple lawsuits. How much money did Bronco 2 litigation cost Ford? It's difficult to say. In 2001, Time reported Ford spent a total of $2.4 billion in damage settlements related to the Bronco. The Bronco name was quickly abandoned. Now, though, Ford has resurrected the Bronco as a rough and tumble off-roader, just like the original. There's a smaller Bronco as well, but it's not called the Bronco 2, but rather the Bronco Sport. And now you know why. Today, the Insider Exclusive Investigative News team goes behind the headline in remembering Ford's deadly Bronco on the debut of their new 2021 Ford Bronco to meet with Joe Carcione Jr. and Josh Markowitz of the law firm Carcione, Henderson, and Markowitz to remember a landmark verdict of $296 million against Ford Motor Company for a rollover accident which killed 3 members of the Romo family. The case also influenced efforts to strengthen the roof support of vehicles. The jury in the Romo case determined that the standard roof of the Ford Bronco was defectively designed. This is a true but tragic and shocking story of consistent corporate greed, and it's a story that has to change. This is the Insider Exclusive, live from the San Francisco Bay, California area. It is my great pleasure to introduce Joe Carcione and Josh Markowitz. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Tell our audience a little bit about your firm.
Our law firm is primarily engaging in litigation that has to do with trying to represent the underdog, period. Plain and simple, the underdog people. Never had a corporate client in our lives. Representing people who have been injured, representing people that have been cheated. That's what we do. And against the big boys, Ford, GM, Chrysler, manufacturers, baby products, many, many cases like that, products liability, and also in litigation involving some situations where people are cheated financially also. The common thread is cheating people, big guys cheating people. That's what we do.
Now, Josh, both of you could be lawyers for the big guys, the white shoe law firms, get paid $1,000 an hour, whatever, but you choose not to do that. Why?
We get to choose our clients. You work for those big boys. They say somebody's suing R.J. Reynolds. Go tell people tobacco isn't harmful. We'd probably be good at that, but I don't know how we would sleep. We represent people. We choose who we represent. And once we find somebody who we think has been wronged and we think we can bring justice to them, we really work tirelessly to do that. And the reward you get when you're able to help a family whose father has been paralyzed in a car accident and isn't going to work again. His kids have to be raised and go to school. And really, we don't have a system that's really provides the support for people like that. And this lawsuit might be their only opportunity to live as close to a normal life as they could. And we want to do everything we can to give those people that opportunity.
So, Joe, tell us about the Romo family that you represented in this rollover case that killed 3 of their family members. It was a Ford Bronco.
Yes, it's a delightful family. You learn about the family as you're doing the litigation. And what I recall most about this family was their dedication to other people. The family, of course, had very, very little income, menial labor, et cetera, like that. But what I couldn't really grasp was how much they shared the little means that they had with other people, with people that didn't have any money to provide food, this, that, and the other. Marvelous family. Mother, father, 4 kids, beautiful kids, just so much love and so much dedication. We found the purse of Mrs. Romo. Juan brought it in, our client, that was left in the closet. And there was a lump inside of the purse that Juan found in the closet. He opened it up, and his mother's handwriting, inside of the lining, there was $300. I think it was $300 or $400. And it said, "To whomever finds this, please use this to educate my children." Dedicated to their children, dedicated to education, dedicated to helping other people, with no means at all. Just a beautiful family, beautiful family.
And what happened in this case, Josh?
Juan Romo, the eldest child, was driving the Bronco. There was a vehicle that kind of cut him in front of him in a lane change, caused him to lose control, rolled over. He survived. 2 of his sisters survived. But his parents and one of his siblings perished. The occupants were thrown out of the vehicle. The 2 sisters were thrown out of the vehicle and survived, but the other family members were crushed by the roof.
Now, in cases like these, a lot of people might just chalk it up to an accident, right? How did this case come to you initially?
Juan came to my office, young man, I don't know, he's 16, 17, 18. He was taking care of his 2 kids because his mother and father were dead and his older brother was dead. I remember I didn't want to take the case for a variety of reasons, been turned down by 3 or 4 different lawyers. And I read the police report and I was going to dismiss the youngster in quick. But then as I read, I go, you mean your mother and father died and your brother died and you were driving? And he goes, yes. I had trouble not tearing up at what he'd been through. Then I saw the picture of the car. This car was a pancake. That's what struck me initially and forever was the striking point for this case. This car became a pancake. The people who died were the people who had seatbelts on. The people who lived were the ones that didn't have seatbelts on. The 2 little girls were asleep in the back. They got thrown out of the car and lived. But 3 people died in that car. All 3 had seatbelts on. That's a bad car. You wear your seatbelt and you die, that's a bad car. You're not going 100 miles an hour, you're just going speed limit, and the car rolls over because of that lack of stability. But 3 people die when they're wearing seatbelts. That's a bad, bad car. And somebody needs to fight for that.
Incidentally, for our audience, these are cases that take a long time. You initially filed that case when, 1998?
Oh, no. Before that, I'd say 1995, 6.
Okay. And through the appeals process and everything was finally resolved in 2003?
Yeah, maybe 2003, 4, something like that. I used to say, I started this case when I was a boy.
It made you a man.
Yeah.
2004 is when it ended.
It was ended in 2004, yeah. The verdict was 1999.
Let's talk about some of the challenges you faced when you're looking at fighting a major company that will spend godly amounts of money, right, to win their case.
Most of our cases involve a defendant with much greater assets than we have. And you certainly can make it difficult on a plaintiff to find the evidence. When conducting discovery, they object. They say nothing's relevant. They don't want to give you the design documents. They don't want to give you the memos. And every piece of discovery in this case was a battle. Went to court. There was a discovery referee appointed by the court because there were so many battles, a very respected former judge. And really it was only through that process that we got the information that not only proved there was a defect that caused the death of these 3 people, but that Ford acted maliciously, wantonly, and cruelly in the process of that design. This was at a time where SUVs weren't a thing. Chevrolet had just brought their SUV to market. Ford was in development. They still had a couple of years left in the development process, but they were worried they would lose too much market share if they allowed the full process to go through. So they started looking for ways to cut corners. And one of the ways they cut corners is on the roof. They were going to have a roll bar to protect the occupants. When they removed that, some of the engineers said, wait a second, people might be afraid about potential rollovers if there's no rollover bar. So we should leave the hump in the roof to give a rollover bar appearance.
Yeah. But I mean, when you bring it up in court, what is the purpose of putting something that's not real on a vehicle to give the perception to people that you're safe? Yeah. Obviously, when a jury hears that, they're thinking, well, why'd you do this? Right?
They don't want a jury ever to hear it, and they do everything they can to prevent jurors from ever hearing it. It is only when attorneys are determined enough to keep digging, to move past that first layer of evidence that they try to give you and find out, let's see what happened in the committees along the way. Let's see what happened when management heard about this. And only by that are you able to get that evidence. But I absolutely assure you, whoever wrote that memo did not expect it ever to be read to a jury.
I covered another case, the Chrysler Dodge Caravan. It had a problem with a passenger seat, fly back, kill people in the back, right? When they requisitioned the vehicle crash worthiness test that Chrysler had done, Chrysler couldn't find them. You know, the usual thing. So the lawyer as in this case, the lawyer performed the crash test themselves. I know that you did a drop test comparing a 1928 Ford Model T.
Yeah, Model T.
When I saw these words, it said, to demonstrate the weakness of the roof, you performed a Society of Automotive Engineers test. How's that work?
It's the test. So we go by the protocol that the Society of Automotive Engineering had for this test. And I go and hire the people, the engineers who happen to have their heads on straight, to do the same type of test for me. And so this was a 1978 Bronco, and I thought it would be cute to go back 50 years to show that 50 years before, when they were making Ford Motor Company cars, they could have conceivably be more strong. We dropped the 1978 Bronco, it crushed to the roof. We dropped the 1928 Ford Model T, didn't even break the windshield. Nothing happened. It was just the most amazing thing that I think I've ever seen in my life, that the quality of the structural integrity of a Ford product had depreciated to the extent that we could show like that.
Right. You know, in these cases, obviously, not everybody is as cutthroat that works for Ford as the management is. The engineers came to Ford management and said, this is a problem. We got a problem here. What was Ford's response?
The engineers of Ford Motor Company came to Ford Motor Company and said there was a problem. Ford's response was, we got to save money. It was simply to save money and get that product out there. There was handwriting on that piece of paper to deduct $9 million out of this program. That handwriting, when the lawyers gave me that piece of paper, they didn't know whose handwriting that was. We were able to find the guy who was head of truck at Ford and had retired. And I showed it to him, a guy by the name of Tom Feeney, tremendous gentleman. I showed him this piece of paper. Do you recognize that? Yes, I do. You've seen that handwriting before? Yes. What is that? Those are initials. You know those initials? I've seen it thousands of times. Who is it? Henry J. Ford. All the way to the top.
Okay, so let's talk about the trial. 5-month trial, right? End result, what?
$290 million in punitive damage, $6 million in compensatories, $296 million total.
Now, obviously, Ford appealed this. You know, too much money. We're not at fault. And this is in state court in California.
This is in state court in a terribly conservative county.
Right. So it goes up to the California Appeals Court. What happens?
California Appeals Court upheld the verdict and indicated the nature and extent of the persuasive evidence that we had shown that this Ford Motor Company acted maliciously, wantonly. They were struck by it and they upheld it.
Then it was appealed again, California State Supreme Court, right? They upheld it too, right?
They did.
But then what happened?
Then a case by the name of Campbell, which was
Campbell versus State Farm.
Campbell versus State Farm, was at the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And the United States Supreme Court took the Campbell case, and our case that Ford had appealed, took those cases and put them aside and did some precedent writing with respect to Campbell versus State Farm on punitive damages. Campbell was a case that didn't have to do with death and injury and killing people, but it was a case that had to do with punitive damages. Punitive damages for stealing your wallet is one thing. Punitive damages for shooting you is another thing.
Let's talk about this, Josh. What is the purpose, so our audience understands the purpose of punitive damages? Why are they awarded this?
They're awarded to punish and deter. We have a society where we rely on products all the time. I'm sitting in a chair, I drove here in a vehicle. Everywhere around us there are products that can cause us injury. There are some countries, you design a product dangerously, you can face criminal penalties. And that's the incentive, and they regulate the products. In America, we don't have that system. We have a civil justice system, and that's the only thing, for the most part, that keeps your product safe. And there are companies such as Ford. There's a famous memo that Ford had with the vehicle fires they had, where they said, look, we are going to cause 10,000 fires, and these 10,000 fires are going to cost us $100,000 to settle. And that would cost us $6 per car overall. To fix the problem, it would cost us $8 per car. So by leaving the problem, we save $2 by car and 10,000 people burn. Punitive damages are there to screw that calculation up, to say no. You can't say how much this is going to cost because we're going to punish it. We are going to make Ford feel it. And for Ford to feel it, there has to be a significant fine.
It has to be monetary pain.
Has to be monetary pain. Joe always gave an example that I always found compelling. You're driving down the freeway and you throw something out your window, it's a $1,000 fine. If you make $12,000 a year, it's a $1,000 fine. You're going to feel that. Ford, they've got to feel it. You've got to find them. If you hit them for $100,000, they don't feel that. If you hit them for $1 million, they don't feel that. You got to make them feel it so that they will make your vehicles safer.
Right. So in the Campbell versus State Farm, there was a similar large punitive damages award, different case. The Supreme Court said there has to be a more reasonable ratio, and we talked about this before the show. There is no actual number, more reasonable ratio between the compensatory damages, right, and the punitive damages. So your case was settled for less money because of that Supreme Court decision, which still holds today, doesn't it?
It still holds today, and it's a tragic decision because the compensatory damages on, say, killing somebody who's 60, 70 years old or a 2 or 3 year old person is going to be low. As a 3-year-old person that you kill doesn't have any lost wages for 20 years, so you really don't have a lot of monetary damages. The only way that you can punish somebody appropriately is to punish them with punitive damages. The ratio just is way out of it. If you kill Bill Gates, the ratio can be huge, billions and billions of dollars. But if you kill somebody similar age who doesn't make the type of money, you can only get punitive damages of $1 million. Doesn't make sense. You're killing a human being. You should be able to base the punitive damages on the wealth of the person that you're punishing.
Right, because that's lost economic value. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so product liability cases, product liability lawyers do what the government doesn't do.
Absolutely.
Right. There is an agency called the Consumer
Product Safety Commission.
And recently, under the current administration, it was basically defunded and it's not effective. No money, who can enforce anything, right? So you guys, your law firm, does what the government fails to do, correct?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
And I think we would both love to be put out of business. I think we would like the government to step in and mandate safe vehicles. They know what the safe standards are.
I noticed when you were both talking about what Ford management said, hey, it's going to cost us $8 versus $6. There was no mention of the word life. There was no mention of the people who are getting killed, whose life is priceless, correct? So great job, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.